ended up having an IPO of $5.5 billion and gave us an opportunity to give back to the community. At first it was, my legacy is destroyed because my son has autism. Now that I've gotten older, I realize it's okay that my son will need care forever. It's something that it took a long time, probably the better part of a decade for me to come to terms with. Even with all of those, kind of resources that we have, both financial and also access, it's been very hard for us to navigate. If it's hard for us, what about folks who don't have the access we have or they don't have the means we have? But we started a foundation, a public charity, helping people and their families that are impacted by autism. And it's called the Maher Foundation.
What do you think is more important to building generational wealth? Networking skills or hardworking skills?
My really powerful network, the names that you know of in both media and business and politics, those relationships are because of my...
Welcome to the Legacy and Wealth Podcast, a show for proven high-earning men who value wealth, character, and a lasting legacy. Brought to you by The Standard, a private membership community for high performers. My name is Mitchell Clark, and today I'm joined by fellow Standard member, Stephen Maher.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes. Well, I want to congratulate you. We are in a different studio than we normally are. You're getting the red carpet rolled out for you. So yeah, with the beautiful skyline in the back and everything else. But yeah, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. I love it. This is absolutely amazing here. How are you today?
I'm good. Well, we have a lot to cover today. I know that you have a lot of great things going on in your life right now that you want to talk to the audience about. But before we get started, let's just go a little bit into your background, what you do. For those of you that don't know who you are, give us a little background about who you are and what you currently do right now.
Yeah, so my name is Steve Maher, and my day job, I am the CEO of a big software company. And I've been working in technology for the better part of 30 years and take companies that are mid-sized, typically enterprise SaaS, software as a service companies, and grow them to a point of either acquisition or IPO into public markets. And so I'm currently doing my 5th company. So really, really exciting. And along the way, have really enjoyed doing that, have been, very blessed financially and in many other ways. We started a foundation, a public charity, helping people and their families that are impacted by autism. And it's called the Ma Foundation, my last name and the foundation.
Yep.
And we'll talk lots about that, but that's who I am.
Okay. Well, actually, that's the first topic we'll get into. We'll go into more of your background and what you do and kind of how you got to this point. But I know this is a very heavy topic for you. It's a personal topic for you. So I want to start with, why did you create the foundation in the first place? What were some of the things that led you to go down this path? There's so many different things you could do for a foundation or giving back to the community. Why this?
Yeah, it's interesting. There were these two sort of converging paths on my life that happened almost 12 years ago. And so I have 3 kids that are going to be 18, 15, and 12 respectively this year. But the day before my youngest was born, we actually found out that my middle child, my son, had autism. And I didn't even know what that meant. And I at the time, I was an executive at a big Fortune 500 technology company. We had lived all over the world and had an amazing life. But everything sort of crumbled that day. And so in addition to worrying about what was going to happen with my son and his future, I also worried about my soon-to-be-born daughter the next day. Is she going to be autistic? What does that even mean? And sort of kind of had a early midlife crisis and quit my big executive job and researched where the best autism care was in the country, which was in Texas.
Okay.
One of the things that Texas did very early was forced insurance companies to cover autism. And so, 12, 13 years ago, that wasn't normal. And when the payers pay, the providers come, right? So when insurance companies cover it, then you'll get actually the best providers. And so they had amazing, therapy centers here. Schools were starting to think of autism as a little bit different than other conditions. And so moved the family here and with an infant, and then went and took a job at a startup in Silicon Valley, making about 85% less than I did before. So I'm luckily not divorced and the family stuck with me. But really what I said was, I have to worry about taking care of my son for the rest of his life,
Hmm.
right? Because he's going to need potentially care forever. And it turns out my son is very severe in the spectrum and will need care forever. And so, took a very big gamble. And the irony is that the company I went, it was sort of the first of the five of growth stage companies, and ended up having an IPO of 5.5 billion, and gave us an opportunity to give back to the community.
Awesome.
And so the I sort of like the dichotomy for me is the thing that created a lot of wealth. I'd give it back in a second if my son would be okay, right? And so, but even with all of those, uh, kind of resources that we have, both financial and also access to all the people we have access to, it's been very hard for us to
Hmm.
navigate this. It's confusing, it's challenging, and so we realized that, hey, if it's hard for us, what about folks who don't have the access we have, or they don't have the means we have? This is something that's going to be impossible. And what really exacerbates the situation is right now, in 2026, there'll be about 100,000 kids in the US that'll hit what we call the services cliff.
Hmm.
Now, I'll talk more about that later, but think of that
Sure.
18 to 21, where they're out of the school system, they can't be on their parents' health insurance. All of these amazing services go away like a light switch. In about 15, 20 years, that number is going to be in the millions. And so I think it was in 2025, 1 in 31 kids in the United States is diagnosed with autism. If you're a boy, it's 1 in 20.
Oh, wow.
And so this is not a coming problem. This is
Yeah.
right now. It's
Yeah.
very acute. And when we actually started the Maher Foundation, it was really just my wife and I, and it was her brainchild. She's the work behind it, and I am on the board, and I help sort of, manage things with her. But it was really sort of focused initially on, our family money, and then, which is, private family foundation. And when we decided to make it a public charity, which is, accepting donations from the masses, it was under the condition that everything we did would help everybody that had
Yeah.
this problem. And so that was, a really, really important thing for us, and also something we're really excited about.
Okay. So, well, I appreciate you going the story with that. Now, as far as actually starting that up, because I know, after the IPO, there's a lot of different ways you give to the community. So why build sort of this foundation? Like, why did you feel like making this foundation was the proper way to kind of help solve this problem? Because it sounds like what you're telling me is you're not just solving a problem now, you're solving a problem that you foresee becoming an even greater issue in the future. So why this strategy?
Yeah. So so this is kind of, I'll give you two very different answers. And I think for the viewers, one is, when you come into a large sum of money, you're going to sit down with financial advisors and estate planners and all kinds of different lawyers, and they're going to give you all these different strategies for not just what you should do now, but for, protecting your legacy, one, two, three, X generations in the future.
Mhm.
And it's all very predicated on these two events: you dying and your spouse dying. It's like, those are not, it's not the funnest conversation. And one of the strategies, regardless of your sort of view on philanthropy, is, having a 501(c)(3), which is the IRS designation for a nonprofit in the U.S. And so we often refer to nonprofits as 501(c)(3)s. So that is a strategy for both, doing good, but also tax sheltering and kind of wealth protection, both for you and generations to come. So I think that's how it was introduced to us. I mean, at the time, it was really okay. We have the financial means to take care of our son. Okay, we're good, right? That's why I quit my big executive job and took, kind of went to this world. And then what we realize is this, strategy that came to us from financial advisors is actually a mechanism for us to do good. But the truth is it started as a financial strategy for sort of tax savings. And, I would encourage anyone, even if you don't know what you want to do, there are amazing ways to kind of look at nonprofits, even if you're creating a private foundation, amazing tax benefits where you can kind of maximize liquidity and capital today. You will give it away eventually, but
Yeah.
ranging from, private family foundations to public charities, which are a lot, and even like donor advised funds and things like that. So
Yeah.
just from a pure kind of wealth management strategy, I would
Yeah.
encourage everyone to look at it. But then, typically, both as you get older and, also if you have something that you're really passionate about, what you find is, wow, what is legacy for me, right? And we were chatting about this
Sure.
earlier. At first it was my legacy is destroyed because my son has autism. And now that I've gotten older, I realize I have two daughters, one older and one younger. I want them to go do their own thing, right? They don't necessarily have to do my stuff. And, my eldest is an artist and, maybe she'll be in the business and whatever they do, as long as they're happy and, they are, their life is fulfilled. And it's okay that my son will need care forever. I kind of, it's something that it took a long time, probably the better part of a decade for me to come to terms with. And so the ability to help other people, though, that has become sort of the
Yeah.
legacy that I care about. And it's really, it's been really exciting.
So when we talk about legacy too, because obviously this is helping them and for your children, in terms of it lasting beyond your lifetime or even your children's lifetime, how does that? It's 501c, right?
Yeah, 501c3.
501c3. What happens after you pass away and children? Like, is there a possibility of it lasting for longer than afterwards? And what does that mean tax wise?
Yeah, so a nonprofit is a company, and what the Maher Foundation is it's a public charity, so it is just like a public company, and it has a board and it has officers, and the board gets to vote who the officers are, so it is not mine. Right. And so the money that we give to it and the money that's donated, it goes to this entity.
Yeah.
And everything that we do, from how much we have to how much we give to how much our overhead is public information, just like any company that's publicly traded on the stock market.
Right.
So this will last forever. And so either when we are choose not to do it, hopefully I could do it until I'm capable of doing it anymore, or we're no longer valuable, or the board decides that, we're not fit for it anymore, it will go on to hopefully the next generation who can take it to the next level. So hopefully it will last forever, which is really, really cool. Or maybe said differently, hopefully we'll have a cure for autism and a way to treat it so that it doesn't need to last forever and we'll solve another problem. But
maybe the foundation can help with that.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's great. Well, now we know like generally what it is. How did it develop? Like, what were some of the steps you took? Like, what was the first step that you take? What was the journey from starting it up to now it becoming a publicly funded entity? What did that process look like?
Yeah, so it started out really with, okay, we're gonna give some money to the foundation, and so and actually what ended up,
How long ago was that?
so this is probably 22,
Okay.
right? When we actually formed the foundation, we said, okay, what we'd love to be able to do is one of the things that is part of our wealth management strategy is investing in private companies, and typically earlier stage private companies that have the ability to, multiply their value over time. And so let's just say illustratively, if you have $100,000 of stock in private company A, and I donate that stock to the foundation, I get a tax deduction on for my personal self, right? My wife and I's personal income, and that $100,000 then goes to the charity. Now, let's say that becomes $2 million one day when the company grows. That charity doesn't have to pay taxes, right? So charities don't pay taxes. So now instead of me getting that money and then donating it after taxes, it's grown inside the foundation. And so that was sort of the original part of our strategy. Ancillary benefit being you kind of get some tax deductions, recognizing you do have to give, right? It's no longer yours, right? You've given it away. So that was really what the strategy was. And we started out wanting to build facilities. And so one of the things, our son is on the very severe side. He's nonverbal, has a lot of behavioral issues, physically very healthy, but but from a sort of a developmental level, will need care forever. And so there's not a lot of facilities out there.
Yeah.
There's some amazing ones here, but there's not a lot out there that handle behavioral issues. Like your Violet, for example. No one likes talking about it, but it is a reality. And he doesn't understand concepts of the world and right or wrong and things like that. So so we said, all right, we're gonna just pile money away, put out grants for some places that need it in the short term. So eventually we would go and build these communities. And when we actually started looking into this and finding some facilities that existed, we're like, we have no idea how to do this, right? My wife runs the foundation and the family, and I run software companies. I have no idea. This is a horrible idea if we do it. It's a horrible idea. So that's when we said, okay, well, what do we want to do? And, we sat down and said, okay, let's come up with sort of 3 rules. The first rule is it has to help everybody, right? The second rule is it has to be something that what we call as an acute problem. An acute problem means that not only is it the consequences of not addressing the problem massive, but it's a problem that's, getting worse and worse every year. And then the third piece is like, we have to have an impact, right? It can't be sort of fluffy and
There has to be some sort of tangible benefit that you're applying.
Right? We have to provide some kind of tangible benefit. And so that's when we created the concept of AutismHelp.ai.
Okay.
And so this is our site, AutismHelp.ai.
Which I was going to say, you having kind of grown software companies, I was going to ask something, is there an AI component to it? Yeah, tell me a little bit about how that all works within your company.
Yeah, so let me tell you about AutismHelp.ai, what it is, and kind of some of the cool technology components to it. And so the thing, what we focus on is called the services cliff, right? So this is the point in time, usually between 18 and 21, depending on the state, that these kids age out of services. So if you're in a school system, you have an IEP. If you're on your parents' healthcare, or even if you have, sort of state or federal run services, they almost go off with a light switch, right? When you hit that birthday, and it's really dramatic. And so there are things that you need to, and your family needs to do for your kid, that are critical, right? Like just to have health insurance or care, et cetera. And some of these things have wait lists that span decades. And I think so. But the real question is, what happens, right? So now that this kid is becoming an adult, what do? So we think about 3 pillars. The first one is living with your family, right, or your caregiver. And so this is probably 80+% of kids with autism. They're going to stay living at home with their parents or their caregiver. The second pillar is what we call independent or semi-independent living. So you're typically more high functioning. You can potentially have an apartment or a house, even a job, potentially go to university,
right,
which is really exciting. And the third pillar is what we call enhanced care. So this is more like my son, where you will need typically residential care at some point in your life. And the way that we think about these pillars is they're doorways. They're not labels. And so, for example, even if you're living at home with your parents, and this is something that no one likes to talk about, it's very morbid, but it's real. Most of these kids are going to live longer than their parents. So at some point you have to deal with it. And if you wait to the last minute, it's going to be a really big problem. And so, being able to, we want to just educate folks, hey, there are residential care places, how to think about them. So the site is structured that way, and it's meant to be an information source. So we don't create information, but we curate it. So every state program that's available, every federal program that's available, tips and tricks about how to handle assurances, and not only what the program is, but how to navigate it, how to deal with it. And so everything sort of exists. It's completely free for everyone to go and visit.
So you're trying to make a complicated process a lot simpler with like one place to go to figure out what do I do next.
Exactly. And so here's the statistic. So there are, kids without health insurance can get onto Medicaid before they're 18. If you're not managing that administrative process correctly, over 25% of those kids get booted off, half of whom never get back on. So they have no health insurance simply because of an administrative error. And so what the AI component is, everyone here is familiar with, ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity or Gemini. And these are large language models that effectively, create content or also go out to the internet and find information. And one of the cool things about them is they're very smart and very sophisticated. And if they don't know the answer, then they will go make educated guesses and usually get pretty close. But when you're dealing with federal and state systems, 95% is, and you're potentially kids' healthcare is in the line, 95% is not enough. You have to be 100% accurate. So what we do is we have what we call a small language model. And so every piece of content that we have is vetted, right? We're not practitioners or lawyers or doctors or right. So, but we take vetted information, we put it into our small language model, and that information is then guaranteed to be accurate. So when you ask AutismHelp.ai's AI, what is the answer? If it doesn't know, it'll say, I don't know.
Okay.
And the cool thing is it lets us know, the team, and then we go and find the answer, we vet it, we make sure it's accurate. So the key is there's always 100% accuracy.
I like that.
But
Yeah.
but the types of things that we're going to do, so obviously we're as sort of time goes on, is folks will be able to come to the site, and so this is in our future functionality. Be able to come to the site, just give us your information. How old is your kid? What state do you live in? You know, what are sort of the circumstances? And then we'll be able to like navigate the whole process for you, get the paperwork, recommend what programs to go on, get folks on lists, right? The most important thing, if anyone takes anything away from this, go to autismhelp.ai, look up your state, get on these lists early. Some of them, like I said, are decades long. Some in Texas are 15 years long.
Yeah.
You can always decline services later, right? It's better to have them and not need them than need them and not have them. And so this whole process we kind of drive for you. The other thing that we do is provide like tips and tricks and guides.
Mm.
And, one of the things that our son did is he would run away or let the dogs out. And so we would have to, turn locks upside down, or he'd start lighting things on fire on the stove. And so we had to get, a stove key installed. So just little things like that. And also providers that are, very kind of neurodiverse friendly that'll work with you and things
Sure.
like that.
So is it accurate to say that the idea behind your platform is it's more of an area to go that will point you to the proper solution, give you a bunch of solutions, and then point you and help you get started along that route? Not necessarily like you don't own the facilities where they go, okay. Like you don't own the facilities where they'll go get the care. You don't own like these things, but you're kind of the connective tissue that brings all these resources together to figure out how to treat it.
Exactly. We're bringing everything together, and we're going to help folks navigate the process, right?
Was that intentional as opposed to like locking on a very specific treatment method and just being sort of like a cultivator instead? Was that a deliberate decision or?
It was a very deliberate decision. I think for a few reasons. One, because my wife and I don't have a background in medicine or caregiving, right? And the second thing is we realized that then we'd be limited to only those folks that we treated, and like I said, our first tenet was it has to help everybody. And so what a thematic problem that we found is that this is so hard to navigate.
Mhm.
And so there's Medicaid has home-based services, think like respite services and home care services. There's 710,000 kids on these waiting lists right now, and that's between 3 and 10 years based on your state.
Jeez.
And so if you don't get on the list early and you know how to navigate the paperwork, and by the way, you might get booted off if you're not following up every 6 months, and these are like snail mail stuff. So we realized that this is a really, really big problem, just kind of navigating this complexity. And my background in technology and being able to run businesses, and Jen's background being, a mom around these things and in the community helping other moms, we thought that this would sort of be the best use of our, of our time. And the reception has been really positive.
What are some of the most common questions you get from families that are looking on the site trying to get your services? What are the most common things you're seeing?
Yeah. So I get certain things like, okay, this is, how much does this cost? Right.
Sure.
It's completely free. Right.
Awesome.
AutismHelp.ai, completely free for everybody. We say, go to the site. The first thing you do, if you do nothing else, there's a really cool thing called Find Resources. There's a picture of the US, pick your state. It'll tell you all the services available. Go sign up for those services. It's the most important thing. Then we show you how to manage that process, right? Because signing up for it, you want to stay on the list, you want to stay involved. We kind of make it really, really simple. And then finally we say, hey, this isn't for everyone, but if you have the means to give, please give. Everything that goes into the foundation, we give back to the community. We're super low overhead, and we want to make a difference.
So what's on the site? Like if I were to click on it right now, what's on the website right now and how is it structured?
Yeah, so you'll see the 3 pillars. So
Okay.
you'll see living at home and a whole bunch of content on living home, everything from how to handle emotional events to how to handle legal issues, how to handle financial issues, what kind of guardianship do I need? What are the differences? What kind of, do I need a special needs trust? What does that even mean? How do I deal with behavioral issues? How do I, if I'm in the independent living or semi-independent living pillar, how do I look for, a job for my kid? How do I think about, what kind of care facility? And if you're in the enhanced care, we need residential care.
Yeah.
What questions should I ask when I'm, first of all, how do I find a place? And then what questions do I ask? So there's tons of guides that kind of take you from, how do I handle, my child when I'm at home in these different situations, to legal and financial and everything in between. And then every time there's something new in the world, we're constantly like keeping our eye out for new information, and we vet it,
Yeah.
make sure that it's accurate, and then we share it with everyone. So
Well, I was going to say, because I've been on a lot of, I used to work for the government as a military guy, and I can tell you most of these sorts of sources are usually very outdated. The websites aren't updated very frequently. It's definitely not interactive. What would you say would be a pleasant surprise for people visiting your site, as opposed to some of these other, like, trying to help out with whatever the issue is? But
yeah, and I think, well, first of all, thank you so much for your service
yeah.
and sacrifice.
Oh, thank you.
I think that, because of my background running technology companies for a long time,
Yeah.
paying attention to user interface, user experience, these are really important things. Making sure data is up to date is really important. Because my wife and I have kind of given so much of our own money to the foundation,
Hmm.
we're starting at a point of like building a world-class enterprise site. And so what you'll find is it's really the only place where you can go and find out every federal program, every state program that's available, and we're updating that, in near real time. And so the information is current, the information is vetted and accurate, and really easy to find, and again, completely free.
If there was one thing that everyone in the audience that they need to know about your website and just your services, what is the one thing you would tell them?
So super simple to remember: autismhelp.ai.
Yep.
I say if there's one thing, pass it off to, a friend, a family member, someone who needs it. We do a good job when the masses come to the site, right? That's why we built it. We want more people to come. If you or your family has someone affected by neurodiversity, uh, go and click on your state, look at the
Yeah.
services available, sign up for those services. That's the second thing. And then the third thing is, if you can give, please give.
Okay. No, that'd be great. Well, and I appreciate you telling us that. I also appreciate that I mean, this is essentially your fund, the entire thing. But now you're going public right now, hence why we're talking about it right here. I wanted to kind of go a little bit into sort of the business and economics of this, or kind of the behind the scenes, because you hear about like foundations and stuff all the time with, whatever people are doing. Is it difficult to create a foundation? Is this something that like every wealthy person should do, even outside of just an altruistic perspective? From a financial perspective, is it a good strategy?
Yeah. So, like I said before, two types of nonprofits. There's private family foundations and public charities. This is my non-lawyer answer. Think of it as, if it's just you or a small group, private family foundation.
Okay.
If you're collecting money from the masses, public charity. Both have pretty stringent reporting requirements.
Okay.
So if you can go you can go to the IRS and the government, look up the Maher Foundation. We also have Stephen and Jennifer Maher Family Foundation. That's our private foundation. And you can see, how much money people take for salaries, how much money we have, how much money people give away. So all of that is public. It's like a public company. So you have to have, complete transparency and governance. Anyone could start one. So if it's something that you are ready to, it's a lot of work,
Okay.
right? A lot of work. And if it's something that you're ready to do, sort of, what your cause is, and you want to go and kind of collect donations and gifts from the masses, that would be a really good public charity. If you're not sure, right, and either philanthropy is important to you, but you're not really interested in, and some tax benefits, but you're not really sure what your cause should be, they have things called like donor advised funds, where you can actually go out there, give a chunk of money away, and then in the fund, and then every year it sort of spreads it out to maximize your
Okay.
tax
It's like
savings.
an index fund for foundations or something like that.
That's right.
Okay.
And then that fund actually will give just enough in that given year to maximize your tax savings.
Okay.
And then you can sort of pick what causes make sense to you, right? So maybe you're not sure. It's these are the things that matter to me. And then, one of the things that we did when we first started thinking about this is, when I grew up, at Christmas Eve, we would always give, kind of the kids would open up I get to open up one present. So we did it with our kids, like Christmas Eve, they get to open up one present. We did Christmas Eve, and that was sort of philanthropy time.
Okay.
And so what I would do is I would write a story down. And that story would be like, imagine, you're cold and you don't have a place to live and you're homeless, etc. And then we would give however much we chose to give to a nonprofit for the homeless, or, for disabled veterans, or for something that mattered for us. And so it became sort of part of our family.
Okay,
And so that
that's
was before
awesome.
the, donor advised funds existed, or at least I knew about them. And then I think for us, when we started our nonprofits, we knew what our cause was, right?
Mhm.
We obviously have this issue at home with my son. And so that was really important. And so I think that, from a pure wealth management perspective, um, and a doing good karma perspective, I think it's important for everyone to really consider philanthropy. And the other thing I'll say from, a pure business perspective, I've been a C-level executive for a long time,
Sure.
big global companies all over the world. I have an amazing network, as you would imagine. But my really powerful network, right? The names that you know of, in both media and business and politics, those relationships are because of my philanthropy,
Yeah.
not because of the fact I'm a CEO of a company. And so for folks that, and my business guidance for anyone is, um, manage your network, pay attention to those relationships, understand, how, don't think about how someone can help you today. Think about sort of the relationship over a longer period of time, and building that and making it less transactional. And so people really respect, especially the folks that you want at that level,
Yeah.
uh, giving back. So
If you want to connect with high performers like today's and previous guests, I want to invite you to apply to join the Standard. We are a private membership community that improves the health, wealth, and relationships for six-figure earners who perform at the highest level physically, emotionally, spiritually, socially, and financially. What we offer is simple. We will give you a vetted local brotherhood of men on your level or above. We will give you a customized plan to build true generational wealth. We will give you a personal liaison to achieve all of your goals. If you are tired of being the most successful person in your circle, frustrated with always pouring into others and not having anyone to pour into you, or you want to have conversations like the ones you're hearing today, in person, on a weekly basis with fellow high performers, go to thestandardmen.com to apply. That's thestandardmen.com. Hit the link in the description below. Now back to the episode.
Well, so with the relationships you had, were they all people that you knew previously, or has this foundation kind of opened up doors for people that you wouldn't have met otherwise to come and invest? Because this is not just tax benefits for you. There's benefits for everyone. Not even just tax benefits, but altruistic. I mean, it sounds like a good cause. It sounds like it's solving a very, very important problem that you have the expertise to solve. So how has this helped you in leveraging more relationships?
yeah, and so no, these are relationships that I built, because of the philanthropy.
Okay.
And when you, and this isn't this isn't true necessarily with everyone, but for the most part, when you're kind of networking with high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals, we don't really want to talk about our day jobs. Right?
Fair enough, yeah.
We do that. I love to talk, I love to talk about my company. It's an amazing company. It does a lot of really cool things. We're at the cutting edge of AI and all kinds of fun stuff. But when I'm not, I work 7 days a week. I'm always working,
Sure.
traveling constantly. So when I'm out in a social setting, that's not what I want to talk about.
Yeah, yeah.
The problem is I work 7 days a week. I don't really have, I have sports. I don't have that much else to talk about. And this is really true with sort of some of these other folks, but not everyone, but I'd say 99% of the folks in that same sort of socioeconomic will have some type of foundation or philanthropy that they do, and that's what we like to talk about. So even if it's just breaking the ice, like, what do you do? Oh, this is my cause. This is why it really matters to me. This is how we think about it. And then you build first of all, it sort of
Is
puts
it
you
just like
on.
a natural conversation topic that comes up when you're around those type of individuals then?
Yeah, it qualifies you,
Yeah.
right? It puts you, it's
You're not just another rich guy or another CEO or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And and it sort of puts you at a level very, very similar to like, flying private, for example. My wife's a pilot, right? So when you're in that sort of space, it's different, right? You can't kind of fake that. It's
Sure.
expensive. And so having, when you have your own charity and it's known and you can kind of look at it, people understand that you're in sort of a different level. And 100% that has opened up business opportunities for me, especially around investing. Right. And so the family office that we run separately from our foundation or my day job, that has benefited amazingly from those relationships. So for those out there, I would say, like, first of all, it's just an amazing thing to do to give back to a cause that matters is the most important thing. But and yes, the immediate tax benefits are and the capital that gives you for enhanced wealth creation if you invest it the right way, that's nice too. But the ability to have a network that can open up business opportunities for you, that's what really, really matters. And I think, like I said, we started talking about this 10 years ago, right? So, and then we formed it in 22. So it doesn't, you don't have to kind of like pour a ton of money into it right away, but pay attention to it as that three prong strategy, right?
Right. Can you say you were talking about just building the framework back in like 2016, right?
Yeah.
So this is not just something that you flip the switch, it's happening overnight. For most people that do start something like this, are they usually just kind of self-funded enterprises that they're making, or how often is someone like you make it and then make it a public foundation?
It varies, and so sometimes what happens is you'll get, um, a lot of times you'll get a group of people that are doing something small,
Mhm.
and then you'll have a private family foundation. So think of 100 millionaires and billionaires out there,
Right.
that they give to other foundations, right? And so they'll say, look, and we started doing that. That was how kind of what we did in the early days. We looked at other foundations, like they're doing some really amazing things. Let's donate to them.
Okay.
And so that's something that you could always choose to do, but it's also that's typically how, I'm a small local group in Ohio, for example. I'm doing this. That's how they can, expand nationally. And so you don't always have to start with a bunch of capital. And but other times it's folks that have the means to do it. They put it in themselves, and then they prove it out. They build the business model just like you would any company.
Sure.
You have sort of business sense. You bring on people that can help you that know how to do it, and then you scale from there.
Well, when you made it, were you inspired by someone else that was kind of doing something similar, or was this just a pure original thought in your mind when you were making this?
It was a pure original thought.
Okay.
And I had no idea uh, that it would open up the door for things. I think my wife initially was guarded about our son,
Sure.
and I mean, something.
Naturally, I feel like that's a natural reaction. Yeah.
Of course, and where I was different. I'm like, how is anyone gonna learn? Is
Yeah.
probably the CEO in me, right? How is anyone gonna learn if you don't tell them what's actually going on and coach and provide guidance and just visibility, right? If you see this happening,
Sure.
I mean, there's so many ridiculous scenarios, and now that my son's almost 15, we've been through them all, but just how people respond, some very nice, that's surprising to you, some very mean, that's also surprising.
Yeah.
But every time what I try to do is, even when you don't want to, right? Even when I want to react badly, it's like, you know what? I'm going to take this as an opportunity to educate you, because I think it's important. And most of the time, it actually people are like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I just thought it was you had a misbehaved kid, and
That's unfortunate. Well, we're talking about this. We can kind of get a little bit more personal. So at my church, I work with a group called the Fellowship, which is like a adult special needs class. And most of them are pretty high functioning, but there's a couple in there that, they do require a lot more special attention. Not like particularly violent necessarily, but, when I talk to the parents and I talk to people that are the primary caregivers, one thing that I like about our little thing is it gives the family an hour and a half just to kind of decompress, go be in worship by themselves and whatnot. And even just being with him for like an hour and a half, I'm like, I can't imagine having to be with this all day, every day. And it sounds like, you have a lot of resources at your disposal. If anyone in this world would be equipped to handle them, I would imagine you would. But even for you guys, it's still difficult within the family setting. So, I mean, how does that, I want to say, like, impact your family life, but how has your family managed to deal with that and kind of come out the other side swinging?
Yeah, I mean, look, you have no choice,
Yeah.
right? You have no choice, and I think, and one of the things that my wife Jennifer is really passionate about, and you see it all over AutismHelp.ai. It's got her blueprint on it is sort of the emotional side of this,
Sure.
and like how to cope with
Yeah.
these things happen.
It's
And
not just logistical
yeah,
support. It's understanding the emotional element of it as well.
and it's one thing to have a cute little kid that is nonverbal and has behavioral issues and you can control him. My son now is the second biggest person in my house besides me.
Yeah.
He's still not fully potty trained, and he kicks holes in the walls. And like, I mean, it is, there are safety concerns and other things. And so it's probably like, if you were to come in and not know, it would be very shocking.
Sure.
And we have the means to sort of, sequester him. He's has access to all the things, but he's got his own little wing in the house and all that other stuff. But if when folks come in, and they see it, it's like, wow, we had no idea. We had no idea that's what you're dealing with. For us, I think it's like anything else, right? You sort of, over time, you're gonna get used to it. My wife always worried about what it would mean for our daughters,
Mhm.
right? And how would the older one and the younger one. I think it gives them grit, right? I mean, but plus it is what it is, and so.
How have you seen it impact your daughters? We're going to talk a little bit more legacy in a little bit, but not only that they're dealing with this at home, but they're also seeing their parents do something about it, not just for the betterment of their child, but other people that are dealing with this. Like, how has this impacted their worldview and how they, go and treat society?
I remember the one that, and it's not funny, but it's kind of funny. Years ago, I caught the girls calling churches trying to give him away, and so I was really, they
I
got in
didn't take
trouble.
though. You didn't take though, right?
Yeah.
So that okay, good.
They did not take. They got in big trouble for that. But
that's funny.
But I mean, so look, the other thing is he's also a teenage boy,
Yeah.
right? So, by definition, he's kind of, a dick. And so,
Fair enough.
and he's just, the testosterone's flowing, he's being a boy.
For sure.
And, I have a preteen and a teenage daughter. And so there's, they butt heads for sure. But truthfully, even though they would never say it, they really do take such good care of him. And, he respects the big one because that's all he's known. He's known her his whole life. And she'll take him to the store and she'll do things for him. And his little sister gives him, he takes a lot of medication, right, for all the things. And so he'll take medication from her. He listens to them. And I think it really gives them, I worry all the time about their lifestyle, right? And getting to travel over the world and fly in private jets, and you can't control the situation they're in. And like, am I just making them just so removed from the reality of life? Because I didn't grow up, my parents, good middle class. I thought we were really wealthy, and until I got a little bit of money, realized it was just a good middle class house. But it is what it is, and it's obvious what our lifestyle is. I think this creates a level of humility for them.
Sure.
That I'm hoping will translate into kind of making them better people and not assholes.
That's good. Hey, that's all you can ask for, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's something, we've talked about this on the podcast, a lot of people, like how are you instilling like lessons in them? Because I think for a lot of like more high performing people, they tend to come from areas where they didn't always have a lot, growing up, and then they've kind of made something of themselves. And so they want to make sure that they're instilling the lessons that made them who they are into their children as well. It does sound like this kind of adds that extra, I want to say like adversity, but like you said, it is humbling, right? And it sounds like you're seeing that in your daughters and the way that they're treating him and, treating everybody else. I wanted to ask you, in terms of like the families that, this are helping, what are some stories? Do you know any stories off the top of your head about like some people that the foundation has impacted so far? I know it's still newish, but
yeah. So I mean, so many great stories. We share a bunch of them in like little vignettes.
Okay.
So we're very careful to, about privacy and protecting kind of confidential information. We only collect information if you choose to share it and join our newsletter or things like that. But really, for me, the powerful ones are the ones where th- there 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 wasn't a catastrophic event because of what we did.
Okay.
It was, wow, I didn't realize that I needed to get on these lists so early. Thank you so much,
Sure.
AutismHelp.ai, for helping me do this. Or, um, I thought that once I completed this form, I was good. I didn't realize I had to check up, and what would have happened would have been catastrophic for them. I mean, imagine, you have no healthcare. Like, my son needs to be anesthetized every time he goes to the dentist, right? And even with really good health insurance through my job, it's very expensive.
Sure.
But Medicaid, that's a different ball game and with different rules, and it gets much harder. But if you have nothing, and no services, and you need them, these are just really horrific stories. And so, and unfortunately, once you're sort of down that path, there's not much to do without without kind of spending a fortune. And so the metric or the statistic that's really staggering, in today's dollars, it's like it costs $2.5 million to care for a child with autism across their life. And for most people, that's just, I mean, it's impossible, right?
impossible, yeah.
Impossible. And so, but if you get the services early, there are amazing benefits. I will say, people ask me too, why this is one kind of that I get all the time. Why does it take 15 years for a wait list? Because these programs the costs are capped, right? They're legislated, and they're amazing people that work at some of these programs, but you may need a staff of 20 and there's a staff of 2.
There's just not so many resources.
There's not enough resources. Yeah. And so one of the things that I think is my good friend Jeff, who's done several companies with me, but he's also on the board of the foundation. And he has access to a lot of kind of political figures. That's something that we're not sure we want to do, but we think about in the future, like, can we help influence legislation, or certainly provide a different lens that's more of a business lens on some of these things. Sure. And so that's something how we think about we can help in the future, which is, how do we change what's coming? Because the problems today are going to be, they're exacerbating every single year, and like the system will crumble if something is not done about it. So I think the short-term stories are, we're helping folks, and the families come and they say, hey, we didn't know, now we know. If we didn't have it here, this would have been crazy. And then, or some of them say, I'll even stuff that we started a few years ago, we hear people go, wow, we got on this list 5 years ago, but we just heard about it from the school. Now we would have been 5 years too late. That's crazy. So those are the fun ones. I think the ones that are, kind of really scary for me are the ones where it's too late. And so that's why I always say, one of the reasons why we're pushing AutismHelp.ai out to the masses, and I'll put tons of marketing dollars behind it, I'll kind of go big, is because the more people that are aware of it, the more we can help.
Then that leads me to the next question: was what scares you most about kids with autism? Like, what's you outlined one of your fear scenarios. What are some other fear scenarios that plague people with autism today?
Yeah, so first of all, the thing that scares me the most is the math. And I mentioned before, 1 in 31 kids are, as of last year, are on the autism spectrum disorder. 1 in 20 if you're a boy. And so while there's 100,000 kids this year in the U.S. hitting the services cliff, over the next 10 years, it'll be 1.2 million. And then now you're getting into like the millions and tens of millions. And so when you're dealing with services that at 100,000 kids are breaking, what happens when it's in the millions? Yeah. What happens when it's in the 10 millions? This is an acute problem. And I am friends with CEOs of big pharma, and I know people are really trying to figure it out. That's not what I can solve for. What I can solve for is, we're not going to have a solution. These kids will turn into adults and they need help, and we have to help them. And the problem isn't coming, it's here now, but it is going to get so much worse. And the data, the data doesn't lie. So.
What other solutions are other people working on kind of in conjunction with you to kind of tackle this problem? Because it sounds like you're providing the knowledge base and connecting them to the different connective tissues that can help them solve the problems. What are some things that other people in your space are doing to try to solve this?
Yeah, there's some amazing things. I think the bulk of autism care is either educating schools and making sure that schools have programs that'll help with behavioral issues. And so widely accepted standard is called ABA, which is behavioral therapy, occupational therapy for folks who need that, and then speech therapy. So those types of things. And so you have practitioners out there that are offering these services either in conjunction with the local schools or in or kind of instead of the schools. So that's where a lot of the causes are going. I think those programs are becoming more advanced. We're getting better trained, better quality people, kind of that are participating in those things, which are really important. And so I'll give you an example. If you're someone who needs enhanced care, and you're looking at like residential support, one of the things you need to go ask is, what's your turnover rate, right? The average turnover rate, meaning attrition rate for employees, is 43%. And so most folks
I'd
are,
imagine that's such a hard job to work in. It would have a high turnover rate.
and are you just having people babysit these folks?
Yeah.
Or are you training them in like actually autism and neurodiversity issues?
I know healthcare in general has high turnover rate. I would imagine for something with special needs, it'd be even higher.
100%. And so these are the things that matter. So we're seeing better pay. It's still not even close to where it needs to be.
Sure.
These are like salt of the earth people that deserve much more. But I think a lot of care goes into the early years. What doesn't exist, and this is something that AutismHelp.ai and the Maher Foundation really cares about, is what happens when you sort of reach adulthood. And look, people have had intellectual and developmental disabilities forever, and but so there's places to go, but they're not equipped at scale. And there's places very specific for neurodiverse and autistic people, but they're not. We're not equipped at scale to handle like this mass thing that's coming. And so that's where we're really focused. And so I'm really impressed, even from the time my son was diagnosed to now, which is 12 years, the level of care across all 50 states. And I mean, and it makes me proud that we're advancing there, but it's still very focused on when you're early. And the good news is that, look, there are no ceilings for these kids, right? I mean, autism is a subjective diagnosis. You don't get a blood test, right? You can't figure it out. Someone looks at you and most of the time just says you have autism, so you get care, right? But every kid is actually different, and what they'll need and the help they need will be much more individualized. And so that's where I really hope the direction is, and it doesn't stop, right? Imagine you're getting tons of care with both therapists and your school district, et cetera. Well, just because you turn 18 or 20 or 21 or whatever, you still need those things, right? You still need people working with you every day. So that's something that
autism doesn't go away just because you become adults. Yeah,
exactly. So that's something that we really are working. We're working towards with providers that can hopefully start doing that, because right now most of these providers exist, right? The ABA facilities, what we typically call them, because insurance pays them, right? So you have kids, and but that doesn't really, the level of that care, it still exists when you're an adult, but it's much smaller. And that's a big problem, because all these kids, right, the millions of kids, they will be adults and they will still need care.
Yeah.
And then a very small subset of them will be able to be independent on their own, and that's amazing. But the ones that can't,
what you can do for them.
Exactly.
Well, I'll ask you to kind of put a bow on this specific like autism world specifically. So I have a sister. She actually has a kid that's on the spectrum, a little bit more on the severe side. And so if she was watching this right now, you could give her just a couple pieces of advice of like things to look for in the future to kind of set herself and her kid up for success. What are the 3 things you would tell her?
Yeah, other than go to autismhelp.ai, go look at her programs, right? She's on.
So you just need one. Just
go sign up for the program. That's it. The most important. I think really what I would say is this. do not put a ceiling on your kid. And because it's really interesting because I have a teenage daughter that's 3 years older, and all the fun things about having a teenager. Sometimes it's hard to separate just being a teenage boy from like autism, right? It could just be a teenager,
funny,
right?
yeah.
And so right, and then like insert any age range, right? Am I
Right.
just being a 5-year-old or is it autism? And so don't put ceilings on your kids, and don't stop trying new things.
Mhm.
And whether you're on the really severe side, which is sort of what we're living with, or the not so severe side, or anywhere in between, it's still really hard.
Mhm.
But there's new techniques and technology and medication that's coming out that are helping. So keep working at it, keep trying, build a community.
Mhm.
That's the other thing. I see a lot of parents with kids with autism.
Could be
They're
isolated.
super isolated,
Yeah.
and my wife talks a lot about that. So we try to bring my son. His name is Xander Alexander. We try to bring Xander with us places and travel with him. It's not easy. It's like a lot of work to do that, and maybe it's not the most enjoyable trip for the family, but we do make sure we do one of those a year.
Mhm.
And so just don't keep them isolated, and make sure that you're not isolating yourself too.
Okay. Man, I appreciate all the work that you're putting into this. I really do appreciate it. For some of the other people that are on here, they want to reach the level that you're at. Like, I think a lot of people, not only in the standard, which is our private membership community, but also just people watching this, they want to eventually get to the level where you're at. So some of the next line of questioning would be kind of like, hey, how do you point the line? How do you reach this level where you're able to pour this much into a foundation and give back to the community and all these different things? So here, my first question for you would be, we have a lot of people that they're working a W-2, it's a normal job, but they want to build something for themselves in the future where I think someone gave me this line that the CEO will never pay you enough to live in the same neighborhood as him. So if you're a guy that's in your late 20s and early 30s and you're trying to like get yourself established, where do you think it's impossible? Do you think it's do you think it's easier today than it is before? Like what would be some of your pieces of advice to them?
Yeah. So I think two things. The first is, a lot of people say that they want to be successful. And there's one thing that I would say, which is make sure you're willing to give up the things you're going to need to give up to do that, because it's that sacrifice that matters, right? And so I think about sort of four things,
Okay.
right? So the first one is you got to be smart.
Mhm.
Now, smart means a lot of different things. You could be really good at, an idea you have, or a profession you have, or just general, street smarts or book smarts, doesn't matter. But you have to like care about, kind of improving your knowledge, whatever that is.
Okay.
The second one is, I call it drive or intrinsic motivation, right? Like you have to be naturally, like wanting to work hard, right? And without that, just forget about it. It's not gonna happen. The third one, this is a hard one, right? I call it growth mindset. And growth mindset is, being coachable, right? And not having a victim mentality.
Mm.
Oh, this didn't work out, or my boss is wrong, or this happened, or right. And, true or untrue, take the opportunity to learn from it. I, uh, I, ca- in all the companies and the successes I've had, I vaguely remember the things I did right. I definitely remember all the mistakes I made, and there have been a lot of mistakes.
Mhm.
And I especially remember how I felt when I made them. And each company that I do that has, been more successful than the last, in large part is because I learned from those mistakes I made. So that's the other piece. And you have like, I'm still learning. I'm happy to be wrong all the time, right?
Sure.
So that I surround myself with people we can be right together.
Right.
And then the fourth one is valuing others, right? And so you're never, your network matters. I don't care if you're the CEO and you have people underneath you, or you're just starting your career and you're interacting with your colleagues. How you value others from your family and friends and colleagues to your customers
Sure.
to whomever you interact with, that really matters. So those are sort of the four things. And that second one, when I talked about that intrinsic motivation, it comes with sacrifice,
Sure.
right? So if you want to be really successful, you're probably not like going out with the boys or the girls, right? And you're gonna have to give things up, and you're gonna have to, like, say, be get really comfortable being uncomfortable. So that's kind of the first one. The second one is, man, I I felt so lucky. Um, when I was a freshman, I went to University of Michigan studying mathematics. To be a math professor,
So you had
and
the smart pillar down. There you go. Smarter than me, anyway. As soon as you said smart, I'm like, well, it takes me out now.
no, I probably would have been a horrible math professor. So yeah, but what's interesting is there's this thing that was coming that everyone was starting to talk about called the internet.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what's this? And then I heard, and insert every dystopian thing that you hear with AI, every
Sure.
disintermediation thing you hear that
I know
AI,
it's
we
so
heard
funny
it.
whenever people talk about AI, I'm like, it's just another iteration of technology. The same thing they're talking about AI now is the same thing they're talking about the internet back in the 2000s. Like, it's just another thing.
100%.
Yeah.
And look, my company's been working with AI since it was called machine learning, and we're at the sort of the forefront of all things agentic, and this is different. This truly is the coolest thing I've ever seen, and I share that because regardless of what you do, right? If you're in technology or not in technology, this will touch you. And so there's no greater time to sort of think about the future of your career, the future of wealth, to answer your additional
Sure.
question than right now. So you have to have those things, right? You have to be driven, you have to be smart, you have to value other people, you have to have a growth mindset, no victim nonsense. If you hear yourself blaming other people, there's only one person to blame. Look in the mirror. Um, you have to have that, but I don't think there's a better time than there is today, because even in my company, I look around at, like, traditional roles, like a salesperson or a marketing person or a customer person or, a software engineer. These roles will be completely different in
Sure.
a year. And not necessarily in a bad way. I mean, but the profile that it's going to take to be successful is going to change.
Hmm.
And I think it's awesome.
I'm already experimenting a lot with helping with marketing. It's like, well, I can replace a lot of the activities I can do, just automate a lot of it. I'm already trying to work on integrating like Claude into like my emails and the HubSpot and this, where I ask one question and it's automating all these different tasks. So I can focus on like the bigger picture. I'm like, what is my strategic objective? And you hit this and you hit this. What would you say would be like if you were someone, let's say in sales, of integrating AI? Because I think a lot of businesses are like, oh, we need to include AI, but that's such a buzzword at this point. Like, what would be a more strategic way of implementing AI into today's workplace?
Yeah, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Before I give you an example, I'll say one thing. If you're afraid of AI and is it going to take my job, what's going to happen, all these other things, what I'll say is, not my current company, but my last company was a cybersecurity company, and we sold it very successfully in 2024. When I was a kid in college, there's no such thing as cybersecurity, not really, right?
Right.
And so new industries will emerge that we've never even heard of before.
Mhm.
And so don't get stressed out about, oh, it's going to take this away. Probably will, probably will. But there will be new things that'll be cooler than we've ever heard of, and those things will be prolific and amazing. Um, but let's talk about sales, and so because I got my start doing enterprise software sales,
Okay.
and so and I'll give you the software example. So what it used to be is you go to a meeting, you'd have, Google slide or a PowerPoint, and you kind of go give your presentation. And then I would, demo my software for you, right? Let me go show you my stuff and how it works. And so in today's world, in, the technology, the company I have today, kind of integrates with big, huge companies, digital platforms. So your website, your mobile app, and things like that. So I'm no longer showing you a deck. I'm no longer showing you a demo of my software. I'm using AI to make a replica of your site. I'm putting my software on that replica of your site, and I'm showing you in real time how your consumers in all the different archetypes are going to interact with this, and the value that they'll see
Sure.
across the board. And it is and the building that custom demo, building all those things now takes, I don't know, 45 seconds. And so the concept of like, hey, I'm going to have a business development rep go generate pipeline for me, and then I'm going to have some kind of pre-sales person or a solution architect, solution consultant build demos and create a solution hypothesis for me, and then I'm going to have a quota carrying account executive or salesperson, build the relationship, do the work. Those days are going to be gone very, very soon. You're going to have one person that 80% of that will be automated by AI. I mean, we're doing it already. And so you'll have one person that I think spans across all three of those roles. They'll be able to do that. You will need a human in the loop. They will be able to do the 20%
Yeah.
that remains there.
Sure.
And so
No, that makes a lot of sense. Like for right now, what I'm using it to kind of help me develop a general strategy and then scrape some information off the internet of like phone numbers and emails that I can reach out to and kind of audit. Like I'm account executive right now. So I'm using it to kind of help me with some of the prospecting modes as well as some of the customer service on the back end. So I kind of see what you're saying where like all those different roles from like the prospector to the closer to the account executive to the back end customer support are all kind of getting condensed into a single person where AI is just able to kind of help you run from start to finish. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, and there is a TV show back in the day called Mad Men, right? And it was about right the Madison Avenue advertising executives back in the I think 50s or something. But I mean, basically, they would like drink whiskey all day. They'd have one meeting a week with a customer, or one big sales pitch and prep for it. And then web-based technologies came and email came and all kinds of stuff. And then your velocity increased. You can do tons of meetings. And then Zoom came and Google Meets and Microsoft Teams, and now you can do things remotely. And so what I'm seeing with AI is like velocity is going to be it's going to go absolutely through the roof. And so think about any task that you can automate, and I think you're doing it the right way. Start automating those tasks, and what's left over is the ability to be much more cerebral, because we will need what we call it in the AI world a human in the loop. There's going to need to be a human in the loop. But also, even if you have your own agent and I have my own agent and our agents can do business together and go shopping and do all this other stuff, we will want to have the human experience.
Sure.
And so things like storytelling and relationship building, and those are going to become really, really important.
Almost more important now than it will be back. That's just such a good point. And I want to go back a little bit because you're talking about all the different pillars of success when you're talking about like hard work and networking. I'm going to ask you a question. What do you think is more important to building generational wealth? Networking skills or hardworking skills? Like which one would you rather have?
Look, I'll take the hardworking person all day, every day, 1,000 times over, because you can teach them the networking stuff.
Okay.
I will tell you about the networking stuff every day, 7 days a week. I take an hour in my morning and I just spend it on my network.
Okay.
And I've automated it, right? But even with AI, I try to make it personal and pay attention to it. But you can think about people and like their proximity to you. Are they involved in the current company I have or the foundation or any of these things? But even just knowing, even if it's a benign thing, like I know that my buddy's a New York Knicks fan and they won the other night. Just send a little quick note, right? Congrats. I don't want anything. I don't need to talk to you. You're busy. I'm busy.
Yeah.
Like, we don't just like pay. People are like, oh, they remembered.
Sure.
Steve's in Dallas. He doesn't even. That's cool. That's cool. So little things like that. But my point is I can train someone how to manage a network really, really easily. I can train you how to build a network, but I can't train you how to work hard.
Okay.
I can't train you how to not get distracted by things.
Okay, so question because you've obviously played, I would say, very much in the big leagues where you're running, a really large business and everything else. What are some elements of creating deals and building the sort of networks that you've made that maybe most middle-class people don't understand? Are there certain, I don't want to say rules, that's a little baity, but are there certain things that the ultra wealthy think about in these matters that regular people don't normally think of?
A couple things.
Okay.
So and some of this may be crass, but I think one thing is that a lot of the investments that most folks have access to, they're not the right investments.
Okay.
We're not going to say the right investments are. They're not the ones that are going to take you to the next level.
Okay.
Right. And so we talk about public markets. Most things that the ultra wealthy work in are the private markets that most people do not have access to. And so access is very restrictive. And it's not just the money thing, although that is table stakes. Um, it's who you know and have access to it. But it doesn't mean that you have to have a ton of capital to participate in, but it means you have to have access. You could start with a $25,000 or a $50,000 investment, which I know that's a lot of money for most people. But it is palatable. It's possible to go and save if you're, if you're in sort of, middle class, upper middle class, to go and save 25,000. What you do with that, right? If you put it into an investment that is, that's sort of for the masses, then you're going to get your returns that are similar to the masses. And, you can do a basic math problem or have AI do a math problem, tell you where to go.
Sure.
But having access to the private markets and to companies, that others don't have access to, that's really special.
What are the private markets? Like, explain that a little bit.
Private markets would be, people that are currently investing in OpenAI and SpaceX and, all these different companies out there that aren't available for anyone to go buy in the stock market. They're private companies. Or things like private credit, where, you have, you're lending money to businesses. Although that's not been great for them recently. But these are opportunities. How do I invest in a really, really cool company? Maybe not a startup that my buddy's starting a startup company, and that's probably not a good idea. But hey, this is a multiple time founder. They have a really good idea. They're already doing 10 or 20 million in revenue annually. They're raising capital from a prestigious private equity firm or venture capital firm. How do I get in on the friends and family deal there?
How do you get in on
You have
that?
to know somebody.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, and typically those are people in the investment community. And in the investment community, there are typically like power players in the different firms. And I'll tell you, they are, they rule the world. And so being involved in that world is, it's game changing, life changing.
How would you get started? Like, let's say you're someone, for a lot of people in our audience, they're like upper middle class, but maybe they don't have quite that network. What would be some starting points to help them get in with that?
Yeah. So the first thing is, make sure that you're managing your finances in a way that when you have access, because it often comes very quickly. Like when I get investment opportunities, they're not, hey, in 6 months, Steve, this might be happening. It's, hey, you went in, you got like 24 hours to decide. You got to wire money right away. So you have to have, right, the ability to, you have to have liquidity enough to do that. So that's number one, right, to be able to play in the game. Number two is whether look, I know a lot of very successful people and a lot of very wealthy people that have W-2 jobs. That's okay. But you should have something else that you do, or more importantly, that your money does on the side that's making money for you. It could be real estate, it could be investments, it could be private market, it could be anything, right? It doesn't matter. There's lots of really good stuff out there, but start getting into the habit of my primary source of income isn't necessarily my day job. And so I think for me, that probably happened, gosh, even probably before I, maybe 10, 12 years ago, where, the investments were making way more money than, my salary and all that, even as a big executive. And so that's really, really important. I started out when I was a kid getting rental properties, right? I was a slumlord in New Jersey. And so
There you go.
I'd have these like 4-unit properties.
Slumdog Millionaire.
Yeah. I had 40 something properties and maybe I made 150,000 a year, which is a lot for a kid my age. And it was a ton of work and there's lots of easier ways to do it.
Yeah.
But the point was but I had a day job, right? So you're getting into the habit of passive income. Everyone's heard about passive income, what to do there, making sure that you have capital with liquidity. And then it's all about building your network. And, groups like the Standard are amazing ways to do it.
Yes.
Look for places where you have like-minded people that are excited to sort of share their network. Also be critical, right? Just because someone's like, hey, I have an investment and you're finally in the world, learn. So the other thing is, not only should you have the capital ready to go, but do the research. Understand how, if I were to go and invest in a business, what are the things that I would look for? Right. And so if you don't understand the basic natures of kind of, being able to look at, they call them, just think of it as like an investor deck. If I can't look at an investor deck and understand what these terms mean, what metrics mean, what good looks like, right? then you need to learn, right? And every industry is very different, right? And so educate yourself on financial metrics. I think that's really, really important too, so that when an opportunity does come, you're able to look through this and be and really make sure that it's a good decision for you, right? What are and I can rattle off a million of them, but what are good trends in this industry, right? Whether it's technology, whether it's uh, healthcare or food industry, anything. So those are important.
Well, you mentioned the Standard, which is the community that we're in right now. What made you want to join? Because you're a relatively newer member. You have all this cool stuff going on. What made you want to become a part of something like this now?
Well, it was exciting, for two reasons. I think from a selfish reason, my job, I travel 130 nights a year, all over the world. And yeah, it's really like to travel. And
Like to or have to?
you have to, you have to you have to.
I was gonna
And
say
look,
you're not going to Cancun every weekend. You're going
no,
for work. Yes.
no, I'm going for work. And look, there are really cool aspects of it.
Sure.
And you get to go to cool places, and then there's other times where it's like it's like going to work at 1 a.m, right? But that often means you're sort of sacrificing. It's hard to build a community locally, right? Because I have friends all over the world, which is great, but when I'm home, I'm with my family and things like that. So having a group of folks that are here in Dallas was really important to me.
Yeah.
And the second reason was I thought that I have a lot of things that, both good and bad, successes and failures, that I wanted to share,
Yeah.
that I could be helpful. And obviously you can tell from the philanthropy stuff that giving
Yeah.
back means something to me. So that
For
was the
sure.
other reason.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. Well, look, we went over a lot of topics today. I think you had a lot of great wisdom to share. I usually end with talking about legacy, but frankly, we've been talking about the foundation. That seems to be the primary legacy that you're going to be leaving behind. Has the foundation changed your outlook on what kind of legacy you're leaving behind? Has that changed? Because I know that's a big topic within the community that we have, but what does it mean to you now versus what it meant to you probably like 10 years ago or so?
Yeah. 10 years ago, it was all about, um, a combination of, me and what I wanted to leave behind, and then also my kids. Like I really wanted my kids to sort of participate in this stuff, creating a family business, this, that, right? And as they've gotten older and as I've gotten older, um, it's really matured into impact. And I think to me, whether my name is remembered or not remembered is kind of irrelevant to me. What is very relevant is, have I done something in my life that will have an impact when I'm gone and continue to have an impact? And that matters to me. Whether I'm associated with it or remembered or not is less relevant to me. And I think it's not an easy journey to get there, right? Because
Sure.
we really want to, like, oh, the tactical answer is, my daughters may take their husband's names, and my son's not going to have kids, and so will the Morrow name live, and at least this version of it. I don't care about that anymore, right? What I care about is, am I doing something that helps people? Will people's lives be better because I've put some work in and really tried to help them? I've been blessed way beyond my work ethic, and way beyond what anyone should be. And so that matters to me more than anything.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, here, now the closing conversation, if people, and I know you plugged in a couple times, so if people want to get a hold of your foundation or you or however, how can people get a hold of you?
AutismHelp.ai,
There it
super
is.
easy. AutismHelp.ai, go to the site. If you have anyone that has friends or family affected by any kind of neurodiversity, autism, share it with them. There's tons of useful information on there. It's completely free. Get on the list as early as you can. If you have questions, fill out the contact form. It comes to our team. We'll get back to you right away. And then my final comment is, if you have the means, please give. It goes to a great place.
Okay. Hey, I appreciate your time and I wish you all the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.